once heard. I can't remember the name of the musical, not that interested. But there's a song called Bring in the Clowns, Don't Bother, They're Here. So the idea was, I came in and I wanted to explain to them, we were looking, in those days there was 3 candidates. There was, are you aware there's a presidential election going on? Are you with me in this? Yeah. So there's somebody called Hillary Clinton. And after Hillary Clinton, there's somebody called Donald Trump. Incidentally, I think he's absolutely gewaldig. Wow, fantastic. I mean, you know, a ganz Jahr freilich. Very Purimdik. And then at that time, there was a guy called Bernie Sanders. So what I did was, I was very careful. I stood up and I said, I want to explain that I'm not an American. And therefore, I'm not voting in the forthcoming elections. I wanted to establish that I was objective and neutral. What I'm going to do, I said, is to go through the 3 candidates. We'll examine the tainas, the criticisms that people generally have of them, rightly or wrongly. And then we'll see from a Torah point of view, from a Torah of Shkafa, whether or not these are a concern for Jewish voters. Let's start with Hillary Clinton. And there was actually some people in the audience who were Hillary Clinton supporters. I simply said, people, notice I'm not saying myself, people say that her problem is she is economic with the truth. And then, having established, and nobody was sort of saying, oh, that's not true. Everybody, even the supporters. And then I wanted to discuss, from a Torah point of view, why emes is so important, and why sheker is a big chasur. Fine. Then we went on to Bernie Sanders, the socialist with 3 houses, and the proud son of Polish parents. Not Rahman al-Islam, Jewish parents, Polish parents. I wanted to discuss why, from a Jewish point of view, it's a bissel problem to find a Yid who is so embarrassed and so happy to deny his peoplehood. But that was easy. There was no Bernie Sanders supporters in the audience. And then I came on to the star of the show, Mr. Trump. And his problem, I wanted to say, people say, not me, Khalila, I have no opinions whatsoever. I wanted to say that his problem is the way that he speaks about other people. And in particular, the way he speaks about Noshi. And I wanted to discuss Rabbi Dessler, who talks about Adina Sadibra. We know there's an idea, refinement of speech. It's a very important Jewish idea. And so I started to go into that. Well, I should have done my research a little bit more carefully. I should have found out that one of the main centers of support for Donald Trump is the Bakarian community in Queens. And there was a fellow from the former USSR in the front, and he stuck up his hand and he said, you tell me just one thing that Mr. Trump ever said nasty about even one woman. So, there was gales of laughter. I mean, everybody's laughing their heads off. And so I scratched my head, and when the laughter finished and subsided, I said, okay. I said, I'll tell you one thing, but there's many more than one thing that Donald Trump has said. And I gave him one example of one thing, right? So he said, oh, but that's only because she was nasty to him. Now, Oiba Zoe, you've just been macabre my point of view of what I've said, but it was obvious to me that he wasn't hearing this. This was a classic example of the backfire effect. If I argued with him more, if I bring him more riots, he was just going, no, not true, it's true. And he would have gone on and on. For care, all I would be doing was turning his belief in what he believed in into a stronger belief in what he believed in. So that's the backfire effect. Now, as Reb Simcha Zissel said, if you find an idea which is out there in the world, it's already in the Torah. There's no chidush in this one. Chazal already tell us that Rishoyim afilu piskol shegehenim, even at the gates of Gehenna. I would kind of think, Rabbi Isai, if you're standing at the gates of Gehenna, you know what's coming next. You're about to roast and toast Afal Pekin, they still don't do teshuva. They still don't reject what their choices in life have been. They don't do teshuva. It's takapella. There's no chidush in that. And taka the Peledic Medrash Rabbah, which is in Shmois. And it tells a story about a Roman noble lady, and she had a conversation once with Rabbi Yossi. Listen to this. And this, if this is not a good example of the backfire effect, I don't know. Matrona omel Rabbi Yossi. A Matrona, a Roman lady, said to Rabbi Yossi, Elokai gedolo me'elokecha. My God is greater than your God. Amar lo lama. Really? Amar loi, I can explain to you why. From your very own Torah. B'shah shenigle Elokechem l'Moshe b'sneh, Hister upon of Moshe. When Hashem Yisborach appears in the snare to Moshe Rabbeinu, what did your Moshe do? He hid his face away. But when Moshe Rabbeinu throws down his stick and it turns into a snake, what did he do? He ran away. Ha! So my God, she worshipped snakes, because there was lots of Mishagoyim in Rome in those days. My God, when he sees my God, he runs away. But your God, all he does is turns his face away. So Rabbi Yossi says, very interesting loshon. Omer lo tifach atzmasa. You've made yourself silly, being foolish. What's the power of your God? The power of your God is only a few meters, a few yards. All Moshe had to do was move away a few yards, and it's not a problem anymore. But my God, Hashem Yisborach, he fills the whole world. He's everywhere. Where could Moshe run away to? So out of kavod for Hashem, all he did was turn his face away. Interesting. What is the message here? You can show somebody the truth. Now, it doesn't say that this lady ran away and became a Geirah. I doubt she did. Because you show somebody the truth, and very often you show somebody the truth, and they're not makabel. All you've done is to strengthen their emunah in what they believe. And if you want to think about more Peledic Azach, you'll find this in the Targum Yonason, Be'emes of Gemara, after Cain kills Hevel. So everybody knows there's a certain friction between the brothers. This is the first murder in history. And so what happens is, of course, that Cain comes up with the idea of bringing a korban. He brings a shmata korban. Hevel, who's the noch schlepper, he brings a nice korban. Hashem accepts Hevel's and rejects Cain's. At which point, there is fury in Cain's heart, and the loshon of the Gemara, the loshon of Cain was, Leis din, v'leis dayan, ve'ein olam haba. There's no Torah. There is no author of the Torah. And there's no olam haba. Now this is astonishing, because we're talking about two Nevi'im. Hashem spoke to both of them. They're Nevi'im. And he turns around and he says, there is no God, there is no Torah. And the answer is, even though the evidence is staring you in the face, he's heard Hashem speaking. He's seen Hashem. As a Novi sees Hashem, whatever that means. But what was coming out of his lips is total nonsense. Because he doesn't want to accept, then he won't accept. If a person is not willing to be makabel, he's not going to accept. Somebody phoned me up last night, or yesterday from England, about Nebuch, a young person who is struggling with Yiddishkeit. Comes from a very choshev family indeed, and wanted to ask if there's a certain place in New York that they'd heard about which would be suitable for this young lady. And I asked the obvious question, and the obvious question is, does the young lady want to go to such a place? You know all the light bulb jokes. There are also so many, you come across the light bulb jokes? Also, it's a different light bulb joke. One of the light bulb jokes goes like this. How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is, the light bulb has to want to change itself. And if you've ever been to counselling, if you've ever known anybody who's gone to therapy, then the onfang, the beginning, nobody's going to start with somebody unless they're willing to listen. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. I remember once in Manchester, when I used to live in Manchester in England, there was two lawyers who phoned up, husband and wife, both lawyers. And they phoned up because their daughter was about to marry a guy. So they wanted me to speak to the girl. Now, she wasn't one of my Talmidos. She didn't live in Manchester. She came from a different shtetl. But so they spent 2 hours. So I was reluctant to get involved because I didn't know the girl. But anyway, they were obviously breaking their hearts. I said, okay, I'll see her. Tell me a little bit about the background. So I wanted to know what I could say, what buttons I could press. Do you keep Shabbos? No. I didn't think they did. Kashrus? No. Do you go to Shul Yom Kippur? Sometimes. Why shouldn't she marry out? You brought your daughter up to be a shiksa. She wants to marry a guy. It fits very nicely, actually. Very sad. Obviously, I didn't say that to them. But what tools did I have? However, I said, okay, I'll see her. But on one condition. You got to be able to promise me she wants to speak to me. Otherwise, we're all wasting our time. Oh, yes, said the father. No. Don't say, oh, yes. Go and ask. Go and ask. So, he phoned me back the next day. Yes, I've spoken to her and she definitely wants to speak to you. All right. So the girl came to see me. Two things are very interesting. The first thing was that she said, you know I'm only here because my father forced me. That was the first thing she said. I'm only here because... The other thing, Zentra San, she had a medical condition. The medical condition was that her eyes did that. I don't know if you can see. All over the place. It's an astonishing thing. If you can't look into somebody's eyes, you just don't know where you're going. And this girl's eyes were all over the place. There is such a condition. I've seen it a couple of times. No help at all could be given because I didn't know, even though I had any tools, the eyes would have stopped me knowing if I'm being Matzliach, which way to go. Interessant, Taka. I understand the father was desperate. He's a lawyer. He's charging £250 an hour, $450, something like that. His wife's charging the same. They did 2 hours of my time the night before, an hour of my time the next day. Didn't even send in a bottle of wine. I didn't want a bottle of wine. But at least shashtek la koras atoiv. No. The girl didn't want to listen. When was she getting married? They didn't tell me this bit. The next week. Gewaldig, right? So just stop her marrying out. Impossible. If somebody doesn't want to listen, you're totally wasting your time. Anyway, so I did a bit of research on the backfire effect, and I found something very interesting. Here we go. There are some proven ways to bring someone around to your point of view, to overcome the backfire effect. So this is what some psychologists said. Listen to this. Let tempers cool down a bit before bringing the subject up again. So you tell somebody they're wrong, you bring them a raya, they're wrong. They reject it completely. Back off. A large portion of the backfire effect stems from people not wanting to be seen as wrong. Not that they can't be makabel what you want to say, they just don't want you to be right. And for Shtetzach, them to be wrong. 2. If possible, you should show your opponent, interessant loshon, your opponent, how accepting the evidence would benefit them personally. Interesting. That if only you see that, you're going to benefit from this. Coming around to my point of view will be good for you. And the third thing is, don't assume that they haven't listened to you. All a person says, I'm not listening, but they go away, and they chew it over. Guess what? They might come around to your point of view automatically themselves, but give them time. I think I remember once telling you, Ramosha Schneider. Ramosha Schneider came from Frankfurt, where his yeshiva just escaped the Nazis. He set the yeshiva up in London in a place called Stamford Hill. And many of the Gedolim of that generation in Europe are Talmidim of Ramosha Schneider, Zachatzadik Livrocha, including many of my teachers like the Getzed Rov, the Albeistin of the Eda Haredis, Rav Wise is a Talmud of Ramosha Schneider. He was a huge Talmud Chacham. But also, as Reb Simcha Zissel says, any ideas you find outside the Torah are in the Torah. If he saw a bocher doing something wrong, or he heard a bocher had done something wrong, and he wanted to give the bocher mussar, this is how he did it. Listen to this. First of all, he would go into the base of Medrash and say to the bocher, come, let's go for a walk. Now, he used to do that a lot. If he wanted to talk over with a bocher, a shtick Gemara, even to clarify it in his own mind, he would say to the bocher, let's go and walk. They walk up and down the street. As he's walking up and down the street, he put his arm around the bocher. And then he'd say the following thing. You know, if you go to a chasna, and you see that the kala has a little black thread on her beautiful white dress, or the chosin has a little white thread on the lapel of his jacket, will you point that out to them? And the answer is of course. Because that tiny little thread, the black thread in the white dress or the white thread in the black suit, is spoiling the effect. But if you go to get your car, which is being repaired in the garage, and the mechanic comes out from underneath the car, and as he comes out, a drop of oil falls onto his shirt or his overalls, will you point that out to him? No. Why not? Because he's filthy. Mechanics are always verschmutzt. They spend their whole day in the blotter. They're completely covered in mud all the time. Oh, you got a drop of oil in my... You mean got a drop of oil in my shirt? I've got a shirt in my drops of oil. That's the best of Chiddush. So with that onfang, with that hakadoma, he would then say, I saw you doing something, or I heard you saying something, and it's spoiling you. That's gewaldig, and it's spoiling you. Do you hear what he's telling him? First of all, he's taking the boy away so the boy's not embarrassed. What did it say here? Let tempers cool down before bringing it up again. A large proportion of the backfire effect stems from people not wanting to be seen as wrong, and certainly don't want other people to see him as wrong. So he took them outside so the other bochum didn't realise it was actually a shtickle mussar. Everybody would think it was just learning Gemara. And then you gain something from accepting the evidence. Das heißt, his arm around the shoulder, he's saying, I'm your Rov, I'm your Rosh Hashanah, I love you, I'm on your side. And then he's telling him, apart from this tiny little thread, I think you're perfect. I think you're gewaldig. If only we take this little thread away, this little pagam, what's underneath is mamish geschmack. So he said, if possible, you should show your opponent how accepting the evidence would benefit them personally. We've had this forever. Getting somebody to accept what the evidence shows, showing them the truth and not getting them to reject the truth, is a chokhmah. Because people are scared to accept the truth. Whether it's about facts or whether it's about people. Especially if the person is you. Now we're standing, Rabbi Sai, at that terrible time of the year again when we're coming into Elul. Elul. And when you're coming to Elul, I remember there's a lady in Manchester once said to me, I hate Rosh Chodesh Elul. I hate the month of Elul. I just want to hide underneath the sheets, underneath the down comforter, and wait for it all to be finished. She's terrified of Elul. Elul is anila doide v'doideli. It's you coming face to face with Hashem Yisborach, and face to face with yourself. It's a time of drisha v'chakira. It's a time of introspection, as they say, trying to see your chesronos during the year. It's a scary thing. And it's not coincidence, Rabbi Sai, that El is always the Sedras of Devarim, which are all Muslim. They're all Teichacha. But how do you give Teichacha? Again, it's something we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is taka, when he tells Klal Yisrael off, Zen Interessant, you remember the Rashi there, Ele had Dvorim Asher Diber Moshe al Klal Yisrael Bever Yaden, Bamid Barbarova, Malsup, Ben Paran, Ben Teufel, Belov, Chasif, V'dizov. And if you look at the Rashi there, I mean, the pasuk itself is really strange. There's something called ways. Do you use ways? I think ways is geschwaldig, I think. Yiddish is that, versteht sich. But if you want to know, or tell them where you're going, it often says cross street. Cross street. So where are you going? I'm going to Borough Park. I want to be in 50th and 13th. That's all. Borough Park, it's New York. 50th and 13th. You need 3 points of reference, and that's all. But here it says, that Hashem spoke to Kol Yisrael, Be'ever Yarden, Bamidbar, Ba'arava, Malsuf, Ben Paran, Ben Teufel, V'Lavan, B'Katzeret, V'Nitzahab. Well, they didn't have ways in those days. But I mean, this is a little bit strange. You need all of that? And V'Shteitzach, Rashi says that we're not talking here geography, because it doesn't make any sense. What do you mean that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to them and the other side, Be'ever Yarden, Bamidbar? Be'ever Yarden is not a midbar. Be'ever Yarden is a green plain where all the Jordanians make all their wheat and potatoes and all that sort of stuff. Ba'arav Malsuf. Rashi says these were the places which Klal Yisrael had rebelled against Hashem Yisborach. And here was Moshe Rabbeinu letting them know what they'd done wrong, to get them to see the truth of where they'd gone wrong, so they wouldn't do it again. But he doesn't tell them. He only is meramis to them. Then after that, it tells you when it was. Etc. Why does it tell you so carefully the time? Well, Rashi says because he learned from Yaakov Avinu, if you're going to give teichacha, wait till they'll listen. And the time when a person is likely to listen most is when the tat is on his deathbed. Meral verstehen, we state in Rashi, that there's a couple of times that I know about in a person's life when your zeicha is guaranteed, your zeicha to have Ruach HaKodesh. One is, if you go about your shidduch in the right way, the Rebbeinu Shalom will put all the pieces in the right place. Could be that the girl comes from Australia, you live in Los Angeles, and somehow or other Hashem will make it all come together. You'll get on. Wonderful. The next one is that geschmacka time in your life when you get to choose the name of your child. That's fantastic. There is obviously some people here who are not quite at that stage yet. Let me assure you that when it comes to that stage in your life, it is, Rabbi Isa, is as gewaldig or what? To choose the name of a Yiddish kind is so geschmack. And you have discussions and arguments, and versteht sich will be a Boba and a Zayda and Alta Boba and Alta. Doesn't matter. But ultimately, the name you come up with, we talked about this a few shiurim ago, that's not a name, that is the child. The child is that name, you are your name. And the third time is when you're about to be nifter. When you're about to be nifter, then that's when a person is given a special Ruach HaKodesh, which Yaakov Avinu, remember the whole thing there, Vayechi, the Shekhinah is at the bottom of the bed. It's a time when a person has a special Ruach HaKodesh. Moshe Rabbeinu's, why it goes into such details, see, you know what? It's when I'm about to die. I'm not got long to be with you. That's when people are listening. It's all, if you want to say, it's psychological. But we call, really, it's what we're talking about, seichel. By uns, seichel. I'm afraid I have to tell you, I had to study psychology once upon a time. I've never wasted my time as much in my life as those lectures in psychology. Anything that was geschmack was common sense, but most of it was narish. Such a Beatles man. Anything that was good, I already knew. This is because I'm not an idiot. And the rest was idiotic. Sof kol sof. It says Moshe speaks to Kol Yisrael. Remember the Rashi there? He says, if anybody here has got any tainas, speak up now, because if he only speaks to Chelik, then the rest of you let Ben Amram tell you that. If we'd been there, we would have taught, yeah. Okay, you're all here. You've got to choose how to get the point across cleverly. Much more than these 3 points the psychologists come up with. In the Torah, it's all there. When we come to an Elul, very often we ask it. I mean, you could understand why this person would hide underneath the sheets. And maybe we can understand from that why Rishonim, even the Piskal Shegehenim, they just can't bring themselves to be Makkah the Emes. And maybe one of the other reasons we're not Makkah the Emes, and we're not Makabel the Emes about ourselves, is because we're scared that being Makir the Emes, admitting to ourselves where we have let ourselves down, and Klal Yisrael down, and Hashem Yisbarach, will mean that we are rejected. So Rabbi Isai, as it is Erev Elul, let's just end with two little ideas, two little gedayas, which are, I think, Zer Kedai. And that is one from Chavos Lavavos, Shar B'Tochen. And here he says, so from the commentator here, the Marpei Nefesh, and it's the beginning of Chelik Beis, and he says the following thing, which I thought was so exciting. He's talking about Mahusa B'tochen, why you can have, and on what basis you should have B'tochen. Incidentally, if I was to ask you, how would you translate B'tochen, what would you say? Somebody's a Baal B'tochen, how would you translate that? No? Trust. Trust in Hashem. So Ramat Yisrael Solomon, soll sein gesund und stark, in his little kuntras on Shar B'tochen, he actually, in the Hakdama, got the printer to print it in English. So there should be no mistakes. He translates B'tochen not as trust, but as certainty. Certainty, vadois, to be certain. And the Ramban says that every Baal B'tochen is a Maimon. But not every Maimon is a Baal B'tochen. Not every Maimon is a Baal B'tochen, has reached a level of certainty in Hashem Yisborach. Did I ever tell you about the first time I addressed the Agudas Yisrael conference? So 4 years ago, I had to speak to Agudas Yisrael. I was there over Shabbos. And speaking to, I think it's 2,000 people on Friday night without a microphone, because they're pretty religious, was a bit, versteht sich, difficult. Rabbi Shmuel Kamenetsky, so sein gesund und stark, he introduced me. No, we never actually met before, so we had a little schmeez beforehand. And he stood up, and he spoke. And then I stood up. And so I said, I think it would be honest and fair to say that I'm making history by speaking here tonight. So everybody's going, I said, I think, unless I'm very wrong, I'm the first Scottish rabbi ever to address Agudas Yisrael. And I was like, oh, yeah. Right, that's what he means, right? I said, and I'm also the first Apikaris to speak to you. Reb Shmuel's looking at me as if to say, I introduced him. Everybody knows what it says. It says in the Mishnah that somebody who's got food for one day and worries about the next day, somebody has the littlest bit of a munah, Apikaris beast. Be honest. If you had food for one day, and nothing for tomorrow, would you be worried? Not a bunch of apikorsing. Okay, so we're not quite in that madriga, versteht sich. We're not quite in that madriga. And sometimes you feel, I'm not quite in the madriga that Rabban Shem should be macking me at all. But he says the following thing. B'tochen is that you are certain. And if you had food for one day, you wouldn't worry about tomorrow. That's a madriga. That's a lifetime's work. Menuchas hanefesh shel Baal habetochen. If you're a Baal betochen, you will menuchas hanefesh. You won't worry about anything else. And a Baal betochen is trust the person that he has invested his trust in. That you trust that the person that you trust will do good for you and what is good for you. And the thing that you invested your trust in. In combination with the fact that it is actually good for you. And then he goes through all the various other things that you can trust him, you can rely on him, nobody can stop him doing what he wants. But here's what the Marpei Nefesh says. Right at the end it says, and you also should know that the person you should have certainty in, because he's a Baal Chesed and will do good for you, even if you don't deserve it. That's what he says. Listen to this. Sorry, it's called the Piskei Lev. The commentator got mixed up. He says, "She'im ein adam samach al Hashem, she'yetiv imo yafilu lifnim shur sadin." Because the person doesn't know that Hashem will do chesed to somebody, afilu, even beyond his chayvus of the din. You'll be scared always that you don't deserve the chesed Hashem will do for you. And then you'll stop trusting in Hashem because I don't deserve it. But if you trust and know and are certain, which you should be, that Hashem will be on your side even at the times we don't deserve it. Rabbi Sai, we're about to start davening, because Nusach Sfadi do it all the time, but Avinu Malkeinu. Notice what Hashem Yisborach calls himself. Avada, ich bin the Melech. Melech is moira, it's fear, it's trepidation. Aber Favdem, ich bin Avinu. Avicha. I'm the Tata. And no father wants their son or their daughter to stay away, get lost. You can come back and say sorry to your father anytime. You know he's going to forgive you. He's your father. But if you know that Hashem is going to be good to you and do good things for you, even if not roy lakach, then that will encourage you, Taka, to have certainty in Hashem. And my Rosh Hashiva, Reb Leib Gurvitz, will finish Rosh Hashiva Gateshead, son-in-law of Reb Eli Lapian. He says the following thing. He quotes the famous Maimer of Rabbi Kiva in the Mishnah, Ashrechem Yisrael. Ashrechem, how happy you should be, Klal Yisrael. Mi matar eskem. Who is matar you? L'thimi ata matarim. And who's going to clean you up from all the affairs that you've done? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can arop nemen al shmutz. It says in Yiddish, the Rebbe Shalom can take away all the dirt, all the stains, all the pagan. It makes sein berg mit shmutz. If we are under a mountain of shmutz, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do upcleaning. But the Rebbe Shalom can take that mountain of shmutz off you and solve you again. Amal, you don't accept the truth because you know it's the truth and you're scared of the consequences of the truth and you know you've let yourself down, you know you've let Klal Yisrael down, you know you let Hashem Yisborach down, so you won't accept it because there's no point in accepting it because it's fatik. I'm a waste of space. Rachmana letzlan. I told you many times before. I just keep saying because I think it's so geschmack. The first thing that Avinu Malkeinu wants us to say when we wake up in the morning is Moidi Ani Lefanecha Melech Ochad B'Chaim She'echlati Bin Mishmatim B'Chemlo Rabo Emunosech. You give me my neshama back again. Rabo Emunosecha. Great is your faith. Great is your faith? Aren't we supposed to have faith in you? You mean your faith? Who do you have faith in? You! Hashem Yisborach wants the first words that come out of your lips when you wake up in the morning is for you to remind yourself that He believes in you. He has faith in you. He's the Father with the arm around the shoulder who'll take you away to a place where nobody sees you being embarrassed and tells you that He believes in you. It's just a little fleck. It's just a little fleck. We can get rid of that. And underneath there's something special. I know that because I made it. I made you, neshama. I made you. Nobody knows you better than me. And I believe in you. So the reason very often that people don't believe the backfire effect, the backfire effect is a kunz of the Yetzer Hara. The Satan loves the backfire effect. But the Rabban Shalom loves something else. Rabban Shalom loves tshuva. Ani l'doidi v'doidi li. You can come back because you know there'll be a warm welcome waiting for you no matter how verschmutzt you slipped up during the year and got yourself. He's ready to clean you off. All you've got to do is to knock on the door and it'll be open for us.